AI and medicine are being sucked into these pathological corporate organizations with government cooperation, and Google cooperating with British and US government on this as one among many, many different examples. 23andMe providing you the nice service of sequencing your genome and then licensing the genome to GlaxoSmithKline on an exclusive basis, right?
Right.
Now, you can take your own DNA and do whatever you want with it, but the pooled collection of 23andMe sequenced DNA is just to GlaxoSmithKline. Someone else could reach out to everyone who had worked with 23andMe to sequence their DNA and say, give us your DNA for our open and decentralized repository that we'll make available to everyone. But nobody's doing that because it's a pain to get organized. And the customer list is proprietary to 23andMe, right?
Interesting.
So, yeah, I mean, this I think is a greater risk to humanity from AI than rogue AGIs turning the universe into paperclips or computronium. Because what you have here is mostly good-hearted and nice people who are sucked into a mode of organization of large corporations, which has evolved just for no individual's fault, just because that's the way society has evolved.
It's not altruistic, it's self-interested and becomes psychopathic, like you said.
The corporation is psychopathic, even if the people are not. And that's really the disturbing thing about it, because the corporations can do things that are quite bad for society, even if nobody has a bad intention.
It's not altruistic, it's self-interested and becomes psychopathic, like you said.
The corporation is psychopathic, even if the people are not. And that's really the disturbing thing about it, because the corporations can do things that are quite bad for society, even if nobody has a bad intention.
Right.
And then
no individual member of that corporation has a bad intention.
No, some probably do, but they don't. But it's not necessary that they do for the corporation. Like, I mean, Google. I know a lot of people in Google, and they're all, with very few exceptions, they're all very nice people who genuinely want what's good for the world. And Facebook, I know fewer people, but it's probably mostly true. It's probably like fun young geeks who want to build cool technology.
I actually tend to believe that even the leaders, even Mark Zuckerberg, one of the most disliked people in tech, is also wants to do good for the world.
What do you think about Jamie Dimon? Yeah.
Who's Jamie Dimon?
Oh, the heads of the great banks may have a different psychology.
Oh boy, yeah. Well, I tend to be naive about these things and see the best in. I tend to agree with you that I think the individuals want to do good by the world, but the mechanism of the company can sometimes be its own intelligence system.
I mean, my cousin Mario Goertzel has worked for Microsoft since 1985 or something, and I can see for him, I mean, as well as just working on cool projects, you're coding stuff that gets used by like billions and billions of people, and you think, if I improve this feature, that's making billions of people's lives easier, right? So of course that's cool. And, you know, the engineers are not in charge of running the company anyway. And of course, even if you're Mark Zuckerberg or Larry Page, I mean, you still have a fiduciary responsibility. And I mean, you're responsible to the shareholders, your employees, who you want to keep paying them and so forth. So yeah, you're enmeshed in this system. And, you know, when I worked in DC, I worked a bunch with INSCOM, U.S. Army Intelligence, and I was heavily politically opposed to what the U.S. Army was doing in Iraq at that time, like torturing people in Abu Ghraib. But everyone I knew in U.S. Army and INSCOM, when I hung out with them, was a very nice person. They were friendly to me. They were nice to my kids and my dogs, right? And they really believed that the U.S. was fighting the forces of evil. And if you ask them about Abu Ghraib, they're like, well, but these Arabs will chop us into pieces. So how can you say we're wrong to waterboard them a bit, right? Like, that's much less than what they would do to us. It's just in their worldview, what they were doing was really genuinely for the good of humanity. Like, none of them woke up in the morning and said, like, I want to do harm to good people because I'm just a nasty guy, right? So, yeah, most people on the planet, setting aside a few genuine psychopaths and sociopaths, I mean, most people on the planet have a heavy dose of benevolence and wanting to do good, and also a heavy capability to convince themselves whatever they feel like doing or whatever is best for them is for the good of humankind, right? And I mean,
so the more we can decentralize control of
decentralization, the democracy is horrible, but this is like Winston Churchill said, it's the worst possible system of government except for all the others, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the whole mess of humanity has many, many very bad aspects to it. But so far, the track record of elite groups who know what's better for all of humanity is much worse than the track record of the whole teeming democratic participatory mass of humanity, right? I mean, none of them is perfect by any means.